UFC 313 is here, and we finally have the matchup that everybody said was never going to happen. The whole world cried that the UFC was protecting Alex Pereira from Magomed Ankalaev. Yet here we are. On Saturday night, we have the biggest matchup in the light heavyweight division. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC 313 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. But before we jump into the card, let's take a look at the latest tool that we have added to WeWantPicks.com. This tool is called the Event Simulator. What it does is it takes every single fighter on the card. It brings in all sorts of data points like implied probability, historical grappling stats, historical striking stats, and it takes all that information and it simulates the fights 100,000 times. You then take those outputs and you can place bets based off that information. You can build DraftKings fantasy lineups based off of that information. I'm going to do it for you live right now in under 2 minutes. What we have here is the full slate. This is every fighter on the card and the implied probability. If I go ahead and click Run Simulator, what this is going to do, it's going to simulate the fights. It's bringing in historical data and information like grappling, striking, historical DraftKings fantasy points. If I wanted to adjust any of these implied probability lines, I could, but I chose not to. Now we have those simulations. It's done. It ran those fights. It used the ridiculous processing power and server space that's not free, and it put this together. What we get is two different outputs. One are the simulation results. I can go ahead and see all sorts of different plot points. For example, we're looking at DraftKings fantasy points for Alex Pereira. I can see the loss distribution, the win distribution, and the total distribution. If I wanted to see time control, this is what that could look like as well. I work my way down, and now we have the building of the DraftKings fantasy lineup portion. What I need to do here is make a few choices. Let's say I think Alex Pereira is going to make something happen. I'm going to add some bias here. We're going to get rid of a little bit of Rizvan Kuniev. And then I'm going to get some Alex Morono. I'm going to add some juice there because I think Carlos Leal is a little overrated. And I'm going to click Build Lineups. And what it did is it immediately spit out these lineups. And what it did with the lineups is it's now showing us the distribution of the fighter per the setup. So I have Josh Van at an $8,800 salary, and based off of all the above information, based off of the simulations, he is in 52% of my lineups. If I want to come in here and adjust that, I can. If I'm good to go, I click this download CSV button. It'll spit out the CSV file with those lineups, and I can upload it directly to DraftKings Fantasy. I'm only 2 minutes and 42 seconds into this video, and I have already built 150 DraftKings lineups using a tool called the Event Simulator that is working. This tool has only existed for a few events, and here's some of the results. Here's DraftKings fantasy tickets. Here's emails we've gotten, comments that have been left. People were just dipping their toes in the Event Simulator waters because they hadn't seen it before. They didn't quite know how to use it, and they were paying off. It was working for the people. A whole bunch of emails, a whole bunch of comments, a whole bunch of tickets. The Event Simulator is included in your premium membership. Premium membership is only $10 a month. If you go to WeWantPicks.com and you click Become a Member, it's $10. It unlocks everything that we do. This is just one of the many things. If you're familiar with this space and you've seen event simulators before, you know that SaberSim is a company that offers an event simulator. I dare you to Google SaberSim and the price, and then come back here and let me know how $10 isn't the greatest value in that space. Spoiler alert, that shit's hundreds, plural, hundreds of dollars a month. All right, pause for dramatic effect. We also have good old-fashioned DraftKings ownership projections. If you want to use an optimizer, we have an optimizer. It is preloaded with the ownership projections, and they are quite literally the best projections on planet Earth. Period. End of story. That's an objective fact. This is data. We have the best data. It has been proven week in and week out. What are we on the 8th event of the year? All 8 events, we had the best ownership projections. The column on the far right are our numbers. Every other column are our competitors. Our competitors include Osimo, RotoGrinders, these giant companies that charge $50, $60, $80, $100, $300 a month. And we beat their numbers every time. Here's the real life results from last week's card. You can unlock every single thing that I just mentioned with this passionate plea, as well as a million other things I did not mention, like FanDuel tools, like bets, picks, an artificial intelligence, a full tape index where you can watch previous fights while doing your own research. A million things. $10 for an entire month. That month includes UFC 313, UFC London, UFC Mexico, and the UFC Fight Night next week. Unlock all of it right now for $10. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Let's go ahead and break down this card. I kept that intro under 5 minutes. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. The money, the time, the investment that we put to build out the greatest product on the planet, and you can't give me 5 minutes and a free video to help promote it? What are you, out of your mind? The hell's wrong with you? But you'll sit your fat ass down and watch a whole bunch of commercials on the news, won't you? You don't have YouTube Premium, so you go watch a bunch of ads. Oh, sorry for promoting the greatest value in this space after investing a ton of time into it. I don't know who that rant was for, by the way. If you're still watching, it wasn't for you. I appreciate you very much. Let's go ahead and break down this card. Apparently, opening up the UFC 313 fight card, we have Djorden with a G, Santos taking on Ozzy Diaz. This is Djorden. The D is 100% silent, almost like Jacobs. Get it? That's a joke that he doesn't use his dick. He's a virgin. Djorden Santos is a UFC newcomer. Well-rounded guy. He's okay everywhere. He's not spectacular at anything, but he's okay everywhere. He's got okay grappling, okay striking, okay leg kicks. His takedown defense is better than his takedown offense. Ultimately, wherever the fight goes, he will be prepared. Is he a killer anywhere? Absolutely not. And his biggest issue is going to be when he fights somebody that's very good at one thing. Because Djorden's sort of a jack of all trades, a specialty fighter should be able to have some success against him. He is $8,700. He's priced pretty high, and that's probably because Ozzy Diaz came into the UFC in his last fight, made his debut at light heavyweight, and got smoked. The guy got smoked. I mean, it was bad. It was not a good situation. He got smoked. But if I zoom out a little bit, Ozzy Diaz is a guy that has had some success, the former LFA champion. He fought most of his career at middleweight, but he made his UFC debut at light heavyweight, and obviously it didn't go well. But he's not the thickest guy in the world. Middleweight should be easy for him. He's done it before. He is tall at 6'4", and he's mostly a striker. He's pretty light in his feet. He's going to use his movement well. He's got some grappling, but I wouldn't call him a grappler. He can find finishes in the clinch or at distance, and he has found plenty of finishes before. He is creative with his striking, and he is pretty tough, but the chin isn't always there. I personally am going to pick Djorden Santos to win this fight. I think Jordan's going to get it done. I think he's just a little better everywhere, and he definitely has the better chin. And because of that, I'm going to pick him. Now, if you think Ozzy Diaz's chin is full-blown gone, doesn't exist, it disappeared in the thin air, then maybe you want to put Djorden Santos in your lineup. He is $8,700. I think there's a couple spots on this card where we might get a little better value, but I don't think that's necessarily the worst value. Then we have John Castaneda, newest addition to the card, and he's taking on Chris Gutierrez. John Castaneda, Sexy Mexi, was supposed to fight last week at UFC Vegas 103. That fight was canceled because his senior citizen opponent wasn't cleared by the Athletic Commission. But this fight has been added to this card. His opponent, Chris Gutierrez, was also supposed to be fighting. He was supposed to fight on this card. He was fighting Jean Matsumoto. He lost that opponent when Jean Matsumoto was moved off of the card. But I'm assuming they told Chris, hey, stay ready, bro. You're good. We got you, dog. So we have two guys that are basically a short notice addition to this fight card. But the reality is they both should be in shape, prepared, and ready to go. I don't know what weight class this fight is at. And excuse my ignorance, okay? God. Because Tapology has this listed as 135. Other places have listed it at 140 or even 145. I don't know what the weight class is. They're both 135 pounders. So I'm not worried about one fighter having an advantage or not. I would prefer, I am on the Castaneda side here. I would prefer a higher weight class. He just cut weight last week. So I would prefer give him 5 pounds. Great. 140 would be perfect. 145 is fine. So if that's the case, great. If not, it's okay. It's not going to change. I picked thinking it was at 35 anyway. We got John Castaneda. He's a Division II wrestler that comes forward, tons of pressure, throws a million strikes, just stays in your face, attempts some wrestling every now and then, and just gets things going. He's just a busy guy. He's not dangerous at all, but he is wildly busy, tons of come forward pressure, And he just tries to make things happen. He wins a lot of fights with activity. If we take a look here, he did just lose to Daniel Marcos, but Daniel Marcos is really good, and he looks spectacular in that fight. If we go back one other fight against Kang, he had the typical John Castaneda pressure. He had 3 takedowns, landed 111 significant strikes, had some control, and this is the fight. The fight against Kang. That's the fight that I think we're going to get here because he's taking on Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez is a pretty good fighter. He's got phenomenal leg kicks. He's a very good striker. He's a good kickboxer. The leg kicks, I'm going to repeat that again because that's probably his best asset. He will just absolutely rip your leg to shreds and give you lots of problems. His volume is okay at 5 significant strikes per minute, but keep in mind, that includes the leg kicks. He actually probably kicks more than he punches, meaning he doesn't really get his hands going, and sometimes he'll just stand there and stare at you. Takedown defense is okay at 69%, but it did look pretty bad in this last fight because he was taken down a couple of times, but it wasn't even the getting of the taken down. That's a new low for me. It wasn't even the fact that he gave up some takedowns. It was the fact that after he was taken down, he was just laying there doing fuck all. He was doing nothing, just laying on his back, useless. And because of that, because of the lack of urgency on his back, because of the fact that he went to a decision with Quang Lee, who took him down when he wanted to, I think that John Castaneda, Sexy Mexi, is going to win this fight. And if John Castaneda moves forward, stays in his face, has that same performance he did against Kang, but here, John Castaneda will be worth his salary. It's basically an even fight. I am probably going to have John Castaneda in my lineup, and I'm just relying entirely on forward pressure and takedowns. Then we have Mairon Santos taking on Francis Marshall. I took a big, deep breath there because this fight does worry me. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to do it confidently because I'm a confident man. But there are some concerns here. And a lot of it is, I think Francis Marshall is actually pretty good. But this line doesn't think so, and a lot of you don't think so. But we'll start on the Mairon side. Mairon Santos is a big, powerful striker. He's got good takedown defense, a lot of patience. He'll take his time. When he finds his openings, he lets his hands go, and he will absolutely light you up. He plots forward. He picks his spots really well. He's got power in both his hands and his feet, and he does a really good job defending takedowns with a really wide base. He's coming off this UFC debut win over Khan Offley. Khan sucks. Khan got knocked out, and therefore Mairon scored a bunch of points. All right? There's your summary. He's taking on Francis Marshall. Francis Marshall's a pretty good fighter. And I know he got smoked by Isaac Dulgarian, but Isaac Dulgarian's a nasty Division I wrestler, and Francis is also a wrestler and wasn't the better wrestler, and sometimes we see that. Sometimes we see somebody who's used to being on top end up on bottom and just have no idea what to do. Isaac came out like a buzzsaw. At that point, everybody's like, Francis kind of sucks. But he doesn't. He's good. He's a heavy-handed guy. He's a good grappler. He's got good pressure, good power, good speed. He'll set up good old-fashioned takedowns. Like he'll lower his level, he'll shoot a double, and he's got good jiu-jitsu. He does keep his hands low, which I don't love. He does throw out long jabs, which I don't love. But he does shoot really nice takedowns, which I do love. He's coming off that win over Dennis Bazooka, where his hands look great, the wrestling looked great. Overall, phenomenal performance. I'm going to pick Mairon here because if Francis cannot get the wrestling going, I think Marion's the much better striker. So that's the breakdown. We're there, right? We're done. We're there. But now, all my intrusive thoughts and conservative advantage, I start to get a little worried. Francis Marshall is good. Like, he's genuinely a good fighter. His takedowns are clean. They're crisp. And because Marion's takedown defense looked good against nobodies, doesn't mean it's not going to, like, who says he's going to be able to defend Francis's takedowns? Oh, he defended Khan Offley's take. Khan Offley sucks, dude. Sorry, Australia. Guy sucks. I'm going to fade this fight. I don't have any bets on Mairon Santos either because there's just a lot of confidence on a guy that really hasn't proven anything yet. And while Francis Marshall's 2-2, one loss is to William Gomez in a back and forth fight, and the other loss is to Isaac Dulgarian, who's an absolute beast that should be undefeated still. I'm going to fade this fight. There's the breakdown, though. If you're very confident in Mairon, I get it because he looked great in that fight. And if he defends all the takedowns, he's gonna ride here. And Francis is in a bit of trouble. Then we have Carlos Leal taking on Alex Morono. You're going to hate this breakdown too. Sorry about it. Carlos Leal. is $9,600 in DraftKings Fantasy. He is a minus 800 favorite on the sports books. Carlos Leal is 0-1 in the UFC. He has built up this clout. He's built up this insane betting line in a loss against Rinat Fakhretdinov. In fairness to him, it should have been a win. He should have won this fight. It was a bad decision. And if you look at the stats, he landed 107 significant strikes. He scored 56 points in a loss, add 30, 86 points in a fight where he basically was defending takedowns. In fact, he defended 17 takedowns. But my plea to you is, if we're talking about DraftKings Fantasy, he might be worth the stab, and I'll tell you why in a second. But if you're watching this video as one of many things that you do, and then you're going to go place some bets, man, I'd be very careful with a minus 800 line on a guy who hasn't won the UFC, who's getting all the credit in the world for fighting the chinniest wrestler in the division. And that Rinat Fakhretdinov is a straight-up wrestler who bombs overhands and dives at legs. That's it. I mean, that's it. He's a grinder. I love the wrestling. But Carlos Leal was able to defend some takedowns and get his hands going. We don't know how good he is or is not. We do know that he can defend takedowns against a guy that's shooting takedowns from a mile away. That's all we know. We also know he's got some of the wildest chest acne and back acne in the world. And I would never normally call that out because, if you have acne and it's not related to steroids, it sucks, right? Nobody likes that. Yeah, I think we're all pretty sure where it's coming from. Okay, and I don't think it's some Proactive is going to clear it up. I think a little less testosterone might take care of that problem. And there might be a little testosterone this time around because now it's a full-blown UFC fight. He's taking on Alex Morono. Actually, let me back up too. That last fight was on the other side of the world. I don't know the drug testing. I don't know if he was in the fighter pool. I don't know anything. This fight, not the other side of the world. No accusations there. Just casual talk between a couple of fellas. He's taking on Alex Morono. Alex Morono, while inconsistent and frustrating as absolute shit, is a proven entity. He's also a very high-level BJJ practitioner. You don't know it because this freaking guy doesn't shoot any takedowns, but he's unbelievable at jiu-jitsu. Very, very, very good at jiu-jitsu. He even talks about the fact, I don't like doing that. I want to put on exciting fights, and that's boring. He's not wrong. It can be boring. But sometimes you just need the dude to do what he needs to do to win. If we take a look, he has a whole bunch of wins in the UFC at several different levels. He's beaten some good guys. He's lost to some good guys. It's a mixed bag, but he has fought a lot of people in the UFC, and he's got a lot of wins, a lot of different ways, including Donald Cerrone, Mickey Gall. I mean, all right, Mickey Gall one isn't great, but he's got wins over Semmelsberger. I remember picking him against Matt Semmelsberger in that fight. He did lose to Ponzinibbio, and this is the fight that everybody's like, oh, he's chinny. He's chinny, he's chinny, he's chinny. He's not chinny because we've seen him get cracked pretty hard, maybe a little touch of wobble, but he recovers well. He does get wild on the feet. He will engage in striking matches that he shouldn't be engaging in, but Alex Morono is a pretty good fighter. Alex Morono has phenomenal jiu-jitsu. He's got unorthodox striking that can be effective, and he's a dog. He's not a quitter. He's not a weirdo. He's not going to back up. He's a tough guy, and he's a dog. So all of that being said, if I have to just pick a winner, odds and DraftKings pricing aside, I'm going to pick Leal based only off the fact that he should be the better striker. All right, we did the fight tape. We watched everything leading into his last fight, and everything said he's a good striker. Then he got into that fight, defended a bunch of takedowns. We're like, all right, he can defend takedowns as well. I don't know if I'm going to spend that money on him in DraftKings Fantasy because he's going to need to finish Morono for that to be worth it. I don't know if he finishes Morono. I really don't. So I'm probably going to leave him out of my DraftKings Fantasy lineups. And then on one hand, it's like, do I just ride with Morono? The problem is he doesn't score well. Wins or losses, doesn't score particularly well. So I'm probably just going to leave this fight entirely out of my lineup. I understand a lot of people love Leal, but listen, guys, I'm here for you. I'm just trying to caution you, okay? I wouldn't go crazy on a guy that doesn't have a win yet in the UFC. I just wouldn't. Then we have, am I missing one? Yes, I am missing one. See, look at that. Almost did it. Then we have Brunno Ferreira. He's taking on Armen Petrosyan. Brunno Ferreira, $7,600. I will put him in my lineup. A, wildly affordable. B, The guy hits like a freight train on the feet. He's got judo. He can wrestle. He can grapple. He can do all the things. And you're going to look at this thing, and he lost on Ruzaboyev. Ruzaboyev's a beast, dude. The guy's like 6'7". Hits like a freight, bombs overhand rights. Actually, they're straight rights. Just bombs him. Brunno was moving forward, ate it right, and that is what it is. Before that, he knocked out RoboCop when RoboCop was good. He still is good. Just has no cardio. Bruno Ferreira hits like a truck. He's very, very good. Smoked Hawes, smoked Stoltzfus, smoked Rodriguez, and he was smoking a boost before that third round submission loss. He was smoking a boost, and he had a lot of success. He was lighting him up. He turned him into a wrestler. Bruno Ferreira is pretty good, and I think he can absolutely win this fight. He's taking on Armen Petrosyan. Armen Petrosyan. That's not his accent. Armen Petrosyan is a very good striker. Former professional kickboxer. Made his way into MMA. And like a lot of people that took that journey, he did nothing to learn any of the other skills. He is still very much a one-dimensional striker. That's it. If you take him down, he'll scramble. He'll try to work his way back up, but he's got nothing to offer outside of that. And when you're fighting somebody and you only have to worry about one thing, and that's his striking, you can have a little more success. I can see Brunno coming in, bobbing and weaving, bombing away up top, and then a judo toss. Bombing away up top, and then a takedown. And don't question his cardio because his cardio looked good in his last fight. I think Brunno wins this fight. I think $7,600 is a great price point. So I'm going to have him in my lineup, and we can't go all in on a guy that is very one-dimensional. Yes, his one dimension is good, but he's very one-dimensional. He's only good at one thing. I am going Bruno Ferreira. Then we have Rei Tsuruya. He's taking on Joshua Van. Rei Tsuruya, and it's not Tsuruya. I thought it was Tsuruya, and then people keep writing it out phonetically in the comments. It's something different. But Rei Tsuruya is a grappler. He's going to shoot a bunch of takedowns. His hands are okay. They're not crazy, but his takedowns are aggressive. He'll shoot big boy takedowns, and if he touches your legs, touches your body, he's going to try to pick you clean up and slam you down. He has big actions, big activities, big movements, and he's moving forward, making something happen. Moving forward, making something happen. Shooting real takedowns. He'll throw some strikes that's really just there to set up the grappling, and he's got plenty of cardio. And you may say, well, he only had 3 takedowns in his last fight, and that's true. But that was against Carlos Hernandez in his UFC debut on a massive pay-per-view card. There's a lot of factors there. Carlos Hernandez, while he's not amazing, that guy's durable. He'll create wild scrambles. He will make you work. So Rei Tsuruya really had to work for that. But he got it done, and it was a pretty straightforward fight. It wasn't really situations where you're like, uh-oh, this prospect might lose. It was pretty clear that he was winning. He did win. And I just think a lot of the slowness, if you will, later on was just the moment. Huge pay-per-view. He's taking on Josh Van. Josh Van's another guy that's been pretty proven over time. He showed up in the UFC on insanely short notice against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. He defended the takedowns, got off 120 significant strikes. And since then, he's looked really good. Even in this loss to Charles Johnson, he was beating Charles. He was going to win that fight. He was going to win a decision. He was going to win that fight. And then early in the third round, Charles Johnson went nuts, almost like what he did last week. Except by that point, Josh Van was pretty much done, and Charles Johnson got the finish. Josh Van came back, beat Charez, looked good. Came back, beat Djorden, looked unbelievable. 165 significant strikes landed in a fight where he gave up 2 takedowns very early. But he doesn't lose his composure. What I love about Josh Van is he keeps his composure. If you take him down, he will work his way back up. If you take him down, he's going to continue to try and make something happen. He doesn't just panic. He doesn't freak out. He doesn't use any energy that he shouldn't be using. He conserves, and he gets his hands going. And for those reasons, I think Josh Van wins this fight. And because of his insane volume, I think Josh Van should be in your lineup. $8,800 is a lot of money, but look what he's scoring. In a decision, 106 points. In a decision, 100 points. In a decision, 113 points. That volume is crazy. If Rei Tsuruya is just diving at legs and he gets his hands going, he's going to throw a million strikes. He's going to land a bunch of them. Potentially find a finish. Obviously, this could be a boring wet blanket bullshit, but I'm trusting Josh Van's takedown defense and striking offense. Then we have Curtis Blaydes taking on the lowest ranked fighter basically of his career. And by lowest ranked, I mean UFC debut. Curtis Blaydes went from fighting Tom Aspinall for a belt, Jalin Almeida for a number 1 contender match, Pavlovic, who fought for a belt right after, Tom Aspinall, the current champion previous, Rosenstruik, Derek Lewis, Volkov, I mean, look at these names. Francis Ngannou, Alistair Overeem, Mark Hunt, Alexei Olenek. Look at these names. These are the people he has fought. And now he's fighting a UFC debut that's not a highly touted prospect. And that is why he is priced the way that he is. Because he's a top 5 guy fighting an absolute nobody. Curtis Blaydes, I mean, you're going to get a conflicting report from me. Curtis Blaydes is a heavyweight wrestler. For a giant chunk of his career, was the best wrestler in the heavyweight division. He's developed some pretty good hands over time as well. He gets his hands going, good, fast, clean, accurate, powerful. Problem is, his chin doesn't allow him to hang. And yes, he was knocked out twice recently, but Pavlovic hits hard, so does Aspinall. So maybe that is what it is, no big deal. But he's not a wrestler anymore either. He hasn't shot a single takedown in 3 years. Hasn't even attempted a takedown. Not even thought about a takedown in 3 years. And without the takedown threat, he's just in a striking match. And that is the problem. Curtis Blaydes does have good technical striking, but he doesn't necessarily have the chin to back it up. And without threatening takedowns, without people worried about a giant man shooting on him like a welterweight, he really can't get the hands going as effectively. He is fighting a UFC debut, an unranked UFC newcomer, Rizvan Kuniev. And this guy's decent. He is a former steroid user, and I can say that without accusation. That is the absolute truth. He failed. He was building a real career for himself. He even has a win over that giant former heavyweight PFL champion, Renan Ferreira. But he does seem like he's clean. He's looking a little soft around the edges, which would imply that he's clean. But he's going to fight the same way whether he's clean or taking the shot. He's going to bomb away, just absolute from his hip, bomb away to close the distance, try to get you to the cage, try to drag you to the ground. That's it. That's it. Nothing particularly flashy, nothing wildly exciting. He's not a phenomenal wrestler. He's not. When I saw a Russian flag and a name like this, I was like, Curtis Blaydes is going to get taken down a million times, but that's not what he's doing. He's dragging you down from the cage. He's not shooting real takedowns. For those reasons, I have to pick Curtis Blaydes. I gotta do it. I think Curtis Blaydes should win this fight. He should be better everywhere. Problem is, his chin might be questionable, and Rizvan's literally throwing punches like he's launching a baseball. I'm going to pick Curtis Blaydes here. I might have him in a lineup or two. If you are using the event simulator that I showed you, the tool on my website, WeWantPicks.com, that simulates fights 100,000 times, my recommendation would be to come in here and then adjust the exposure to Curtis Blaydes. And very easy to do. Just go to Curtis Blaydes, click down. We're going to remove some bias there. It's going to adjust the lineups, and then it's going to spit out the lineups, and you'll see Curtis Blaydes drop down the list. There's not as much exposure. And that's really because the chin can be somewhat questionable. And Rizvan could get something going. If we move our way up, we have hit the main card of the evening. We have Mauricio Ruffy taking on King Green, formerly Bobby Green. Mauricio Ruffy. It's a tale of two fights. In his UFC debut against Jamie Mullarkey, the guy came out, tried a scissor kick immediately, or a scissor takedown. Just flew in sideways and attempted that. Then he got back to his feet, let his hands go, looked like an absolute god. It looked insane. It was one of the most impressive UFC debuts we've ever seen. Not just because he won, not because he won by first round stoppage, but because he attempted that insane takedown that looked pretty good and it was out of nowhere. Because on his feet, he hit a wild flow state and just absolutely got Jamie Mullarkey out of there. But then he came back. They gave him James Yontop. They're like, here's a fringe guy that probably doesn't deserve to be in the UFC. Go build us another highlight. And while he landed a ton of strikes and kind of beat the shit out of that kid, he didn't get him out of there. He was pretty low volume considering, let's put it this way, he landed 25 strikes in a few minutes in his first fight, 67 in 15 minutes in his last fight. And if we go back and we look at it, it's like, okay, maybe James Yontop is just built out of cement. Maybe James Yontop is a guy that nobody can get out of there. Potentially. That's why it's a tale of two fights. We don't know which Mauricio Ruffy we get. Is he the guy that smoked Jamie Mullarkey, or is he the guy that maybe he flows a little too, takes a little too much time? He's a little too hesitant, a little too reactive. I tend to think it's actually a hybrid. I think the Jamie Mullarkey win was like a 1 in a million. I think it was just the stars aligned. He looked insane. but I don't think that's who he is in every fight. I also think he's got plenty of power, and James Yontop just happens to be built out of brick, and he just moved forward. Just moving forward the whole time, just eating punishment. He did get a knockdown in that fight, didn't get James out of there, but the reality is I think Mauricio Ruffy is very, very, very good, and he is fighting a guy that's sort of on the downswing in Bobby Green or King Green. Bobby Green, we all know by now, exciting guy. He's got that Roy Jones Jr. style where he's got his hands at his waist. He's a pretty high-volume guy, works on the defense. He has wrestling as a backup plan. The wrestling actually got him submitted in his last fight. He didn't even really strike with Paddy Pimblett that much. He went to the wrestling, which made no sense. Shot a takedown. Paddy Pimblett turned that takedown into an armbar triangle choke where he choked Bobby unconscious and then was breaking his arm. It was insane. All because Bobby shot a takedown. But he's a good striker. I don't know what we're going to get in this fight. He might shoot more takedowns because why wouldn't he? Or he might fight the same fight he fought against Jim Miller or even Rafael Fiziev years ago, where he just let his hands go. Just hung out, let his hands go. The problem is, it wasn't that long ago where Jalin Turner had that dude bad unconscious, like one of the worst knockouts we've seen, and then another hit late. So we know that Bobby Green or King Green can be knocked out. We know Mauricio Ruffy can do some knocking out. I got to go Mauricio Ruffy here. I will probably have a little bit of exposure him into my lineups. But Bobby Green's a crafty vet, and he might just turn into a Nurmagomedov here. Then we have Iasmin Lucindo taking on Amanda Lemos. It's unfortunate that Iasmin's $8,500 here. Would have been nice if she was the dog, because in real life, she was the underdog for a giant portion that this bet was on the books. And then as the weeks went on and the fight got closer, I think about 3-4 days ago, she flipped to a favorite. So here she is as a favorite. The reality is that Iasmin Lucindo's a pretty good fighter. She's going to come forward. She's going to work in her grappling. She's got some speed. She's got some power. She's got a good clinch, and she's going to drag you to the ground. On the ground, she's got good top pressure. She's going to use strikes to loosen you up, and then as you try to push your arm out or try to move and cover your face, she's really going to try to work for a submission, try to fake something happen. Iasmin Lucindo's good. She had 3 takedowns the last fight, 2 takedowns, 4 takedowns. She's winning fights. She's making things happen. This fight was close against Marina Rodriguez, but she didn't stop. She grinded forward and made something happen. Problem is, she doesn't score very well, especially not in the decisions. Sure, if she finished Polyana Viana. Outside of that, she doesn't score well. So I'm about to pick her here, but I'm not going to put her in my lineup. She's taking on Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos is pretty good as well. Amanda Lemos is somebody who's going to come in here big, strong, and she's a nice Muay Thai striker. She's got fast hands. She's got good power. For the most part, she does a pretty good job keeping fights at the Muay Thai range that she wants. But if you can work in, you can get some takedowns. She can struggle a little bit on the ground. We saw that against Verna Jandiroba. Verna Jandiroba just worked her, ultimately got the submission, and you can see by this ridiculous number here, Amanda Lemos only landed 2 strikes in 2 rounds. While I don't think Iasmin's takedowns and grappling are as good as Verna's, they're certainly good enough to probably get Amanda down, probably get Amanda against the cage, probably just keep her guessing with the strikes. And I think this is going to be sort of another step in the wrong direction for Amanda Lemos, and I think Iasmin gets it done. And I just think youth, pressure, and wrestling are going to be the difference here. Then we have Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Jalin Turner. This is a battle of the 2 longest guys in this division. Ignacio Bahamondes is 6'3", as is Jalin Turner. Both of them have incredible reach. Ignacio Bahamondes and Jalin Turner both do a pretty good job using that reach. Ignacio showed us in that last fight against Manuel Torres just how dangerous he can be. He used the length incredibly well. He got his hands going. His takedown defense is absolutely spectacular at 85%. His takedown offense, however, is horrendous. He tried 5 takedowns and he got 0 of them. But the reality is he's got great length. He's got great power. He's very, very dangerous. He uses leverage well. Ignacio Bahamondes is a very good fighter. And if you want to throw him in your lineup at $8,200, you know he'll fight for it. And if he wins, he should be good. 99 points against Rong Zhu. 116 when he finished Gallegos. 125 when he finished Torres. My only caution to you here will be is that Jalin Turner's good. Jalin Turner does not suck. Oh, he lost 3 of his last 5. Sure. But the Gamrot fight was an all-out war, and ultimately he just couldn't defend all of Gamrot's takedowns. It is what it is. Second best wrestler in the division. The Hooker fight was also an all-out war, and ultimately it was like, razor thin, and Dan Hooker just started to take over a little later after Jalin had a lot of early success. And that's just a Dan Hooker fight. That guy's going to be in there going crazy, not quitting on you. And his last loss against Renato Moicano, he had Moicano 99% knocked out. He dropped that dude in the first round, had him finished, and instead of just going and landing one more strike for the referee to stop it, he turned around, walked away, raised his hands, celebrated, had a full adrenaline dump. Just full-blown adrenaline dump, was celebrating what he thought was a walk-off win at UFC 300. But it wasn't, because the ref didn't stop the fight. He had to go back out there the second round. By that time, he's done. He's done. There's nothing left. Have you ever experienced an adrenaline dump? Nothing left, and he lost. These are 3 quality losses. Normally, pretty durable guy, pretty tough guy. You can run through here. He's a guy that has come out here, used the length really well, laser pinpoint accurate striking. He can snatch up submissions. 3 of his last 5 wins are submissions. I'm going to pick Ignacio Bahamondes. I do think Jalen's getting a little bit of disrespect here. I think he's a very good fighter. I'm going to pick Bahamondes. You should put whoever you want to put in your lineup. Meaning, if you're on the Jalin side, don't let me convince you otherwise. If anything, I think Jalin deserves a little more respect than what he's getting, because I think these 3 losses are logical losses. That should be a really good fight. I also think it's going to be kind of a slow fight. I think the range on both sides is going to give them a little bit of confusion, right? Jalen's not used to fighting somebody as long and tall as Ignacio. Ignacio's not used to doing that either. So there might be a good feeling out process early. Then we have the co-main event of the evening, Rafael Fiziev doing a rematch against Justin Gaethje. Their first fight was a drag-him-out war. 3 rounds. He scored 39 points. And there's only strikes, nothing else. You're not going to see any grappling or anything else from Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev, famously the Tiger Muay Thai striking coach. Phenomenal striker. He's been out for about a year and a half due to a knee injury. You're going to see this KO loss to Gamrot. That's not what happened. He blew his knee out. Good first round, blew his knee out. It is what it is. Got the surgeries. He came back. This is a rematch against Justin Gaethje in this first fight. You'll see he landed a bunch of strikes. And that's it. He is a little bit one-dimensional. He's just a striker. He's a very good striker, a very dynamic striker, but just a striker. He's taking on Justin Gaethje, the human highlight reel. Justin Gaethje comes out here, gives every fight his all. Justin Gaethje's a guy that's going to bomb away in his hands. He'll shoot a takedown, maybe. Justin Gaethje is a former college wrestler, and the one and only takedown he has ever shot in the UFC, look at this career, the one and only was against Fiziev. And that's because Fiziev was touching him up, and Fiziev was making it dirty and grinding, and Justin needed to get a takedown to sort of lock things in, change it up, and get a score back in his favor. And that's what he did. So if you think Justin is not washed, then why wouldn't you be picking him here, right? I, unfortunately, think that Justin is probably on the decline. He was way slower than Max Holloway. Max Holloway boxed the shit out of him. And then Max Holloway put Justin unconscious. Straight up, zero consciousness, laying on the canvas. Rafael Fiziev is insanely durable. He hits very hard. He's very fast. He's very clean. I think Rafael Fiziev is going to win this fight. Scoring-wise, there's not a ton of upside to him unless he gets a finish, because he's not going to grapple. He's not going to wrestle. He's going to need a finish. So if you're going to put Fiziev in your lineup, that means you think he's going to finish Justin. If you're going to put Justin in your lineup, then obviously you're rooting for an upset. He's only $7,800, and when he wins, he scores pretty well. Certainly at that price point. I'm going to be on the Fiziev side. I might have him in a lineup or two, but it's going to be an interesting situation. A year and a half layoff. There's a lot going on here. And then we have the main event of the evening. I'm going to do a little bit of a rant here, and I apologize. My bad. What I will tell you is don't let me convince you of anything, right? Whoever you think is going to win, put them in your lineup because they're going to score a ton of points. I'm an Alex Pereira fan, and I think you should be too. If you are coming into this weekend and you're the annoying friend that's like, Ankalaev's going to smoke him, bro. You'll see, bro. You'll see, bro. You're the weirdo in the Discord. Sorry to our Discord that has 10,000 people in it. Not all of you are weird. Some of you are. And you're just like, can't wait for Ankalaev to win so that you can be the genius. I was so right. Look at my avatar. It moves. What I'm asking you is, why the fuck would you want Ankalaev as the champion? Why would you want that? I can understand being like, oh, guys, I hate to say it, I think Ankalaev might win, but I'll be rooting for Alex. I'll take that take all day long. But everybody's like, he's going to smoke your champ. Your champ sucks. Why? Why would you want that? Alex Pereira is the most active champion of the world. He's the most active champion. He's the most exciting champion. Look at this. Look at that. Just look at this. He knocks out Jiří Procházka to win the belt. He knocks out Jamal Hill to defend the belt. He knocks out Jiří again to defend the belt. He knocks out Khalil Roundtree again to defend the belt. This will be his 5th time fighting with the title, with this title, because he also had the middleweight title. Alex Pereira is one of the most exciting, electric guys on this planet. Why would you not want him as champion? You want him to lose to this boring, no personality Magomed Ankalaev? He did an interview with Nina Drama. Even she couldn't make this guy exciting. This guy's got no discernible personality whatsoever in the octagon or out of it. He's just coming off that decision against Rakic. The guy landed 55 strikes. Hey, congratulations. $9,400 favorite. He scored 59 points. What an absolute clown shoe. You have to run. Who did he finish? Anthony Smith. Nope. Anthony Smith blew out his ankle in that fight. And Kutalaba, very finishable guy. And more recently, Johnny Walker, the most finishable guy. If we look at Ankalaev, he earned this title shot by going to a draw in his last title shot. He fought for this title in 2022, went to a draw against a senior citizen where he got his legs beat to shit. Then he no decisions Walker. Then he finishes the chinniest guy in the division. Took him 2 rounds to do it. And then he goes to a decision with Rakic, who was run through by Jiří Procházka. I'm done with the rant. I'm sorry if I offended you because you're like Ankalaev's relative and you want him to win. I'm sorry. I apologize. But as a fan of this sport, why would you not want Alex Pereira to continue to be champion? Now let's talk about who I think wins. Oh boy, it's going to be a tough one. The problem is, as boring as Ankalaev is, he's good. He's good. Alex Pereira, we all know, hits like a freight train, that left hook from hell. Very good fighter, very good striker. Seemingly decent takedown defense. Nobody's really tried. Ankalaev is probably going to really try. He famously tweeted while he was begging for this title fight, which I get. You want to fight the biggest guy on the planet, the biggest pay-per-view draw. While begging for this title fight, he said, I won't shoot a single takedown for 15 minutes if you give me this title shot. He got the title shot. Guess where the fuck that tweet went? He deleted it. And then there's a video of Glover and Alex Pereira wrestling in the snow, and Ankalaev said, you better be prepared to do that for 25 minutes. So he's planning on going all in the wrestling. And unfortunately for us, if that's the plan, then he's going to win this fight. And before you say, well, Ankalaev is going to be fasting, it's Ramadan. No, he's not. He said he's not. He said, I'm not fasting for Ramadan. I'll ask for forgiveness. I'm not going to judge his religious beliefs or choices, but just putting that out there because I know that is a narrative that the Ramadan fasting is going to affect him. Do not factor that in. I am going to ultimately pick Alex Pereira. If Ankalaev wrestles nonstop, hardcore, then I get it. He can win this fight. Probably will if that's the case. But I do think Alex just hits too hard. I think he's in too good of a flow state. I think Alex is just the best he could ever be right now in this moment. And I think he can land clean a few times. And I think he can win this fight. And either Ankalaev has early success or no success. Because if we go back to this Jan Blachowicz fight, Jan lit that dude's legs up. And Alex hits twice as hard as Jan does with the leg kicks. I'm going to go with Alex here. You pick your side. You throw him in your lineup. Guys, that's the breakdown. Check out the event simulator. Go to WeWantPicks.com. Become a premium member if you're not. It's $10 for a freaking month. That's going to give you access to UFC 313, UFC Mexico, UFC London, and the fight night next week. You'll have access to every single pick, every bet, every tool. The latest tool is the event simulator. I showed you early in this video how to build a lineup after using the simulator. 150 lineups with a couple of clicks. You also have full access to our DraftKings ownership projections, which will be preloaded into our DraftKings optimizer. Go to WeWantPicks.com, become a premium member. It's $10 for an entire month. Unlock all of it right now, and good luck this weekend. I'm looking very much forward to this card.